So today we're just going to have a conversation about your social enterprise and why you set it up and what makes you stand out from other organisations. So Emma, who are the unseen victims?
So the unseen victims is anyone. It can happen to anyone. At any moment in time, their life could be becoming impacted by a journey through the CGS. They've done nothing wrong. Very few individuals early on in the proceedings identify themselves as an unseen victim, but they are. They're left behind to pick up the pieces, and they're the ones who are going to be supporting a person on the journey through the criminal justice system. The unseen victims need to be able to identify the enormous financial and emotional burden that they're going to be taking on. Anybody can be an unseen victim at any time.
Can you tell us about your personal journey and how you became involved in supporting the unseen victims?
So in 2016, my partner at the time was arrested. He was later jailed in 2017. He went to prison for 3.5 years of a 7-year sentence, and I supported him throughout all of that time and also for 11 months afterwards. So I experienced the whole of a prison journey. During that time there was very limited support for anybody, very, very limited support. And so I created my own social media groups, and I encouraged people to come into those groups and supported them. And moving on from then, last April I wrote and published the book Unseen Victims, which is available on Amazon. And as a consequence of that, I realised that I could then expand on the book's content. So we created what's probably the most exclusive website for the unseen victims that's available. And then we decided that we would go down a more supportive route rather than just the website. So we have a telephone line, we have web chat, we have safe social media. It's very important that these people are very vulnerable, and it's very important that they are moderated, language is moderated, content is moderated, because legislation changes all the time, and at this moment in time, they could find themselves doing a prison sentence without even thinking about the consequences of what they are doing.
What are the common challenges faced by unseen victims?
Nobody wakes up one morning thinking, I want to support somebody in prison. Nobody wakes up thinking that. So the whole of the journey is about support. There's so many challenges. For example, going to court. If you've never been to court before, finding yourself in that situation is incredibly difficult, because it's an alien experience for you. Your first visit, when will the first call come? I collapsed on my first visit. I passed out, and I'm quite a strong person. But I found that it's absolutely overwhelming. It was not a very pleasant experience for me personally at all. And I use that experience. I speak about experiences similar to that in my book, because that was my lived experience. Because if you've lived in somebody else's experience, or you've stepped in somebody else's shoes for that element of the journey briefly by reading about what they've done, then potentially you won't find yourself in that awful position yourself.
So you created a toolbox of information to be able to share with loved ones and family members of people that have either been arrested or are actually in prison at the moment. So can you share a specific story of an unseen victim whose life was positively impacted by the support your group has provided?
I speak about this lady in my book. She very kindly donated her story to the book. But I was speaking with her for a number of weeks. She was heavily pregnant. Her partner had just been sent to prison. And she was just desperate. She was desperately sad. Anyway, we were talking, and then late one evening she rang me, and she told me that she had developed preeclampsia due to the anxiety and stress that had been caused to her, and that sadly the baby had died. So I'd known of deaths in custody where a partner had passed away, or a child, whilst they were in prison, but this was new on the outside. So I told her that first thing in the morning we'd action a plan. So at 9 o'clock we began ringing the prison. She was ringing and I was ringing, and all she wanted, obviously she had to tell him that the baby had passed away when he called her, but all they both wanted as a couple was for him to be able to hold his baby and say goodbye. So we've gone on to the prison all throughout the day, and then the last call was made. I made the last call, And shortly after that last call, he actually came through the hospital. He was shackled. It was during COVID. They weren't allowed to embrace, but he was allowed to say goodbye to his baby, which was really, really important. Without that lived experience, I would not have been able to support her. I'm still very good friends with her now, but that's just one element of why lived experience is so important.
And creating a safe and welcoming environment for victims' families to share their experience as well, isn't it? Because that's where people can change lives, by sharing their experience, so people don't make the same mistakes, or if they are in a position, then they know how the system's going to take them.
A good example of that as well is that I've supported hundreds of women over the years who haven't realised that when their partner comes out of prison, probation may not put any conditions on them, social services certainly will do, and what they do is they allow their partners, this child's daddy, into their home because they've been visiting, for many years, and then 2 weeks later social services pick up the case and she is at great risk of losing her children. I've seen red flags like Matador's Picnic. People just, they don't recognise the danger that they're in, don't realise how vulnerable that they are, and they don't understand that they are an unseen victim. And they let people get away with some terrible, terrible, really bad things. And I write about that in the book. You've got to ask questions and insist on being part of the case, because prisons are full of very dangerous individuals and master manipulators, and people, you're in love with that person, but it all may not be as it is. So red flags are very important.
Tell us about some of the current statistics as well.
So at this time, there's around 95,000 inmates currently housed in the 144 prison establishments around the UK. That figure is set to soar, according to the Ministry of Justice statistics, to over 107,000 by 2027. That's an incredible short period of time. That's around 20,000 people who at this moment in time haven't even committed a crime. So these people, the turnover is constant. It's never going to decrease. It's only ever going to increase if we're following the Ministry of Justice statistics.
How do we reduce the number of people being arrested and being incarcerated, in your opinion?
Rehabilitation. An awful lot of people do go on to commit further crimes. The Ministry of Justice puts so much emphasis on strong family bonds being crucial to reduce the risk of reoffending, and I think they estimate it's around 57% of inmates who have strong families don't want to reoffend. So yeah, I'm very keen to get into schools and universities and colleges and speak to these young adults about the consequences for their family should they go and commit a crime. The majority of crimes are committed in a split second. There's not a lot of thought that goes into it, whereas others, there's lots of planning that goes on. But think about how your parents are going to feel. There's an empty space around the table on Christmas Day. You're not there on Christmas, on her birthday to give her a hug. It's a very difficult situation that you're placing these people in.
And it's not only that person that is doing the time, the whole family, that loved one, those children are doing the time with you.
The grief that these people feel is extraordinary. Overnight, household income, has been halved if it's your partner, or you're finding yourself every other weekend. The hobbies and interests that you had previously are put to one side because you have to go and visit that person. So your social life and the impact that it has on your personal life is incredible.
Tell us about the financial side as well, that people, unless you're in that situation, don't think about the incurred costs from your experience as well.
Yeah, I managed to spend £14,200 in 3.5 years, and that was just on support and visits. I could have bought a brand new car. It's an incredible amount of money, and whilst I was doing so, it never occurred to me the debt that I was getting myself into. That in itself is a red flag. Don't ignore these things. It's a massive emotional and financial burden that these individuals are placing on themselves. Lay down boundaries very early on. Consider the implications for your family. Put you and your family first.
Because I was really interested when I read your book about media intrusion, and that we don't realise until you're in that situation that a media company can create a documentary based on the crime or the person, but also bring the families and the loved ones into it without any permission.
Yeah.
And that kind of that experience of trauma for that family is unbound, really, isn't it?
But there was a documentary, a fly on the wall documentary made about the police interview with my ex, and some of the book's content is directed towards. As a consequence of that, I tried to commit suicide 3 days later after it was aired. I would have left my kids, my 3 children, with no mum, and everybody who I'd told fibs to that we simply split up and made painfully aware. The trauma that I went through with that, because I had to go to work, I'd lose my home if I didn't. But it's unfair for me to say backlash, but the opportunity that it gave people to be incredibly nasty towards me was extraordinary.
But you didn't do the crime, Emma.
I didn't do the crime, and I wasn't named. They did actually bleep my name out. The letter that I received from them said that I was named in the documentary, and all of the protests that I made, all they did was bleep my name out of it.
And you didn't give permission?
No, absolutely not. No, it was a horrendous experience. It really was.
So what advice would you give somebody who feels isolated and unheard after experiencing trauma?
Don't feel that you're alone. Identify as early on as you possibly can that you are an unseen victim. Use social media groups. Group with people. You might not like all of them. Not everybody likes everybody, do they? But that's what they're there for, and they're very supportive. It's a really supportive community, because these are unlikely angels. That's what I call us all, as a collective.
Connecting with others is important, isn't it? Because they have similar circumstances and they empathise. So and that's one of the things that you encourage.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about the structure and you in your organisation. So you set it up 7 years ago. You've never paid yourself for all of the support that you've given, but now you're creating a team because your organisation's growing. So tell us a little bit more about that.
We've got a phenomenal team on board now. We've got over 30 years experience between the lot of us, and it's an incredible intellect and lived experience, collaboration. Nothing else quite like it out there. I've never been paid. I've never taken a penny from the organisation. And every penny from the book sales has gone back into, and it's not been a lot, but every penny from the book sales has gone back into the organisation. As we're growing, we're developing. Each one of the moderators, we've all got individual qualities and strengths, and we are able to offer such a widely dispersed lived experience.
And long term, how do you see your organisation in a few years? Where would you like it to be at financially, as well as the support that you're providing?
Yeah, I mean, at this point in time, the majority of support out there is a telephone advisory service. And what I would like to be in a position would be that I've employed 10 ex-offenders to work in my call centre. It won't be a call centre, they'll be sat at home, but we'll call it a call centre. But yeah, giving these people opportunities to give back and be, involved in the community.
How can communities and individuals actively support unseen victims and contribute to your cause?
We accept donations, people can buy the book, we have affiliate links on the website, we're building on that every day.
Because people don't realise they can't just send something in, they have to use affiliated links to that prison, and that's what you want to see more of, isn't it, Emma?
Waterstones approached me and they asked if they could place an affiliate link on my website, which I was very proud about. And the reason for that is because some prisons will allow you to take books in, not many, but the majority are sent in via Waterstones. It's very difficult. You can't send pretty much anything into a prison as a gift for a prisoner. So using that, everybody does buy books for their loved ones. I'm not saying that they read them, but they certainly do buy them for them. So if they use an affiliate link on my website, I will get paid a commission, or the organisation will get paid a commission on that sale. And all of that money goes back into unseen victims and goes back to these people to support them.
What message would you like to convey to anybody that's watching this video who might be an unseen victim themselves?
I want them to identify that they are an unseen victim as early in the proceedings as what they possibly can. The person who has had a crime committed against them have ample representation, as do prisoners, in my opinion, whereas us guys don't. use the unlikely angels that are going to support you. You know, they're going to come and comfort you. Use that, and you know, grow with it. Empower yourself. Try not to get yourself into an anxious panic. You know, there's no need for that. If you read about others' lived and learned experiences, you're going to draw on that when it's your turn, because you will be faced with unprecedented challenges and hurdles. And in knowing about what the processes are beforehand, and then you're empowering yourself immediately. You're already in an elevated position.
So could you share a message of hope and encouragement for families who feel invisible or overwhelmed by their circumstances?
Yeah, I love the word hope. I use that every day, constantly. There's a really well-coined prison saying, and it is, you can lock the locks, but you can't stop the clocks, because the majority of these people will be coming home to you one day. The book's cover is actually an image of mine and my ex-partner's hands. We were holding hands. I took the image 3 hours after he was released from prison, and that image resonates with so many people because it is an image of hope. You know, like, things may be very, very bleak on these journeys, but there is always an end to them. And there's always, you know, something positive. Be positive, be proactive on these journeys, and it'll be so much easier for you.
So what advice would you give others who aspire to create positive change in their lives or lives of vulnerable populations?
Yeah, absolutely. Be engaged with your loved one's rehabilitation, because keeping that person out of trouble in the future is so important. Put you and your family first, or you and your family always come first, but certainly factor the rehabilitation journey that your loved one is going on, because that's where your future lies. If that person, you know, comes out and can become, you know, a positive member of society, certainly work on that. Work on that.